Our first speaker hails from China, speaks 4 languages, and co-founded what is now one of the largest online travel agencies in the in-destination industry. Please welcome the Chief Operating Officer of GetYourGuide, Tao Tao. Welcome.
See you.
Thanks for coming, Tao. Really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for coming to our town.
Well, you're welcome. That's for you.
Thanks.
So I want to do just a quick catch-up and a quick intro. So we all know you're an OTA. GetYourGuide is an OTA, an online travel agency. Can you just give us a sense of scale? I know you were founded about, was it 8 or 9, 10 years ago?
Yeah, 10 years. So we're considered, I think, finally travel industry veterans, which is.
So are you still a startup or?
In mind.
In mind. Okay.
Yeah.
So how many employees?
So we're closing on 500 employees.
Wow. How many markets do you operate?
All of them.
Okay. Do you share, like, I've seen a figure, I think, in one interview, like 20 million tickets cumulatively. So do you share any kind of gross booking data or anything?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're very proud. So just now we're surpassing 20 million tickets sold in lifetime of GetYourGuide. So this is really, so I'm from the city of Beijing. So first, when we passed the Beijing population, that was quite an accomplishment. So now next is Chengdu or one of the other cities.
So yeah, a lot of questions to go into, but just first, a little surprise for you. So if we could, we have Reinhard Lehner, the Chief Digital Officer of the Austrian National Tourist Board, and he has a little story to share.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. I heard about GetYourGuide the first time about January 2009. I met a young boy. He was called Johannes Reck.
I know him.
And we were at a conference. And
that
he
was the
told
co-founder,
me,
right?
He's a co-founder, yeah? And he told me about the idea of GetYourGuide. And I told him, well, I'm in the business for 20 years. You know, visitors, they book hotels. Visitors, they book flights. But they will never, ever book tours and activities online, weeks or months in advance. And I guess I was wrong.
Well, thanks for giving us the motivation to do it. No, so actually, I actually remember that trip. So this was when we were back in Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, ETH Zurich, and it was the 5 founders of us, and we were 2 electro engineers, 2 molecular biologists, and 1 physicist. And we thought, why not do travel, right? Because out of all the things,
perfect sense.
Out of all the things you could do, and so we were passionate travelers ourselves. We've been traveling to many different places. And Johannes and I, we actually went to the student conference which we organized in Beijing. And I was his, well, obviously I was his designated tour guide. He didn't pay me, but I was his tour guide. And when we came back, we thought, hey, wouldn't it be great to have these, you know, locals, a local friend, a local expert, local insider to guide you wherever you go. And this was back in 2008, I think, when we were still in university, and we came up with this idea of a peer-to-peer marketplace for tour guiding. We did this for about 1.5 years, didn't work, many reasons, could be another session on that. And however, we then discovered on the back of an envelope that there are all these amazing things you can do, especially with a bit of disposable income. Now, context is we were 23, didn't have any money. All the money we had went into food because Zurich is very expensive. And so we didn't really know this industry because we were used to backpacking, to staying in hostels. But then we saw all these amazing things you could actually do. And so we started doing a bit of research. And actually already back then, so this was very, very rudimentary market research. We estimated to be 100 billion. So we're only off by a magnitude of 2x, so I think pretty good. And then we started.
It's not bad for some molecular biologists and so forth. Okay.
Not too bad.
Yeah.
And so we then actually went out to meet some of these businesses, and there was a very common reaction. So everybody in those days said, so everybody in the travel industry, so you know the folks working in hotels and flights, they were telling us the ancillary word, I think that you used before. Some of the other folks were saying it's very offline. And there will be products that will be transacted online, and there will be products that will be transacted offline. And the thing that you're in, we don't even have a name for it, this will be offline. So I think fast forward a couple of years, we've all learned that it's not a question of if anything goes online, but when.
So at that time, did you ever imagine that you'd be raising, what, almost $200 million, that you'd be as big as you are today? Like, was that?
The honest answer?
Yeah.
Well, I think the honest answer is when you start out doing something, you just pursue something. And we were actually thinking, hey, worst case scenario, this is an amazing MBA application. So that was the initial plan. And so, however, over time, the vision does get a little bit bigger, right? So when we started, we were thinking peer-to-peer, local friends, tour guiding. Then we discovered tours and sightseeing. Then we discovered the world of attraction tickets and how you can go see the world's towers and the zoos and aquariums of the world. Then you discover things like ground transportation, all the other categories that you listed. So I think over time, the vision got bigger. And now, even when you see the fact that hotels and flights, at this point, fairly commoditized, right? I mean, whether it's an orange website or a blue website or a green website, it's all the same thing. All people have the similar prices. So we actually believe now the vision can become even bigger. And so you mentioned the number 3 in terms of market sizing. We actually think it can be number 1 in terms of consumer awareness. So I think the honest answer is definitely the vision kept evolving over time.
So what was the, over the journey, if there was one thing you could point to, what was your biggest challenge? Like, what was the hardest thing that you had to do? Can you share that? Because there's so many business owners and entrepreneurs here. Like, what was the toughest thing over that journey?
Well, I think a few couple of things, right? I mean, initially, just the daily grind. I don't think because there's so many things, and most of you run your own businesses. There are, at any given point, 100 things that could go wrong, and then 50 do. And then you have to pick the 3 things you want to overinvest in. So, we don't want to take too much credit for some of the luck and timing. And I think on that graph that you showed of the online penetration, we attribute a lot of our success to the right timing and to a lot of the macro tailwinds of mobile, of digital, millennials. So definitely that. But definitely in terms of challenges is when we started, absolutely nobody believed in the industry. Nobody believed in us. We couldn't raise any money in Europe. So this was back in 2010, 2011. So we started in Zurich. There was absolutely 0 angel funding for B2C companies. There was absolutely no Series A company raising money in travel in Europe. We had to go to the United States. And so our firm, Spark Capital back then, which gave us the money. For them, we were their first travel investment, their first European investment. And so there's just a lot of headwinds that you have when you are pioneering a market.
So you've raised quite a bit of money. So where does this, and there's been some rumors, some press reports that...
Love rumors, gives you clippings.
Yeah.
That's great.
Okay, that there's going to be maybe another round and talk about like SoftBank or some other firms that are, so like what is in the future? I mean, what can you share with us? So IPO? Acquisition, another big round. Can this marketplace support more public companies?
Absolutely. So nothing to announce at the moment. I think the reality is, if you follow some tech news, I think what's definitely changed and what's also very common now is that you're always in talks with investors, right? At the time you close a round, you're already talking to the existing investors, with incoming. It's a conversation you have to keep going, right? Because this has become a competitive edge that you also build over other companies. So I think there's not a single time where you just say, okay, we're not going to talk to any investors. What I, however, find more interesting is, all joking aside, is it's definitely a sign of the maturity of the industry if you see that people are now even interested in rumors of your fundraising. So I still remember when we raised the first Series A round, nobody wanted to write about it, certainly not in Europe, certainly not in travel. People were still thinking, okay, this is an add-on product, this is an ancillary product, this will be acquired at some point by one of the OTAs. And I think this goes to the second part of the question of, can it sustain public companies? I mean, if you look at the cruise or car rental industries, how many public company those much smaller markets can sustain, certainly we believe that this can sustain multiple public companies.
So for a while, especially after one of the big raises, you guys were a really kind of buzzy company in the industry. Everybody's talking about you. And then there was some rumblings out of Hong Kong. There was this company. Of course, I'm referring to Klook.
Yeah.
So suddenly they raised 100 million. And then I think last year another 200 million. So when that news came out, what was the first thing that you and Johannes said to each other?
I don't think we talked about it, but
yeah, right. Yeah.
What we do remember, look, I think again, if you look at the relative amount of funding raised relative to the size of the industry, this sector as a whole is still underinvested, right? Consider how much investment has gone into hotels, how much investment has gone into flights. Frankly, how many asset investments have gone into cruises. Granted, they have to buy ships. it's still very much underinvested. And then I think part of the investment that we talk about are those public fundraisers. But if you go into some of these large public companies that don't disclose their investment into the sector, you'd be surprised at some of those numbers as well. So I think it's very, very natural that you see everybody first using the language of saying, we want to own the end-to-end trip. We want to go where the customers are. We want to be in their pockets when they're actually in destination. Reality is, if you book a hotel, there's no reason for you to be in their pockets in destination because you don't need it anymore, right? So you already have the language of all these large companies talking about it. And obviously, this is now followed on by both in terms of startups as well as more independent OTAs really investing into this space.
Okay. But I'm still not going to get the first text message that you sent to Johannes.
So I think the reality is, if you are truly surprised by these things, then you didn't do your homework.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. So a couple more industry developments I want to just get your guys' perspective on. So I think the big news last year, of course, 2 big kind of general online travel agencies or so. Right? So TripAdvisor, Booking.com acquired some of the top reservation systems. What's your take on that? Why do you think they did that?
Well, we can only speculate on the reasons. Certainly, one of the reasons is that I think both Booking and TripAdvisor, and so we worked with them previously. So we were sort of powering their tourism activity segment. And so when the partnership ended, they didn't have really a backend system anymore, how you could manage those things, right? And so part of the reason is to have access to the whole value chain, especially on the supply backend. So that's definitely a technical reason, one of the enabling in order to get into the industry fast. But I think another reason, and that's certainly, I think, something that as an operator should think about is definitely getting all access to all the data, right? All the commercial data, all the availability data, the customer data, in order to then improve their consumer product possibly.
Would GetYourGuide acquire a reservation system?
So we like it when companies have a very clear purpose. And so we are very much like an independent neutral ecosystem for supply reservation systems for multiple reasons. Now, the core reason a supply reservation exists is to really help the supplier manage the business, maybe manage distribution, manage vehicles, tour guides, availability, invoicing, and all these very, very complex things. The goal of an OTA, by definition, is to have as many customers as possible. Now, those are 2 very, very different goals, right? And we actually think that it's not in the long-term interest of an operator to put all your data in the hands of all these OTAs.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be in your long-term interest to have access to that data?
No, we want to focus.
OTA?
So we really want to focus all our energy, and look, there's 3% of the market is captured. We want to focus all of our energy on improving the customer experience. And there's so much to be done of better matching supply and demand, improving some of the fulfillment, and we've launched a new product called Originals, where we really we look at the data of what customers book, then we take that data and then work with our local partners to come up with even better products. That's what we think is a good alignment of using shared data to create a better product versus potentially using all the suppliers' data to improve just for your own customers.
So I want to come back to Originals in a second, but I just want to ask just one quick follow-up on this. What's your stance on kind of GetYourGuide working with the reservation system? So Fair Harbor and Boken, I believe you've got connectivity relationships with them you had prior to the acquisitions. Is any of that changing, or are you considering kind of changing how you work with those companies as a result of those, now that competitors of yours have acquired?
Well, I think first and foremost, we would never make a decision that would hurt our customers and also would hurt some long-standing relationship with our operators, right? That's objective number 1. That said, the fact that these systems are now fully owned by some of these competitive companies will change our perspective in how we potentially invest in the future in building out connections and building out the relationship. But I think we've been in this business too long to make really impulsive decisions, but it's definitely something we'll keep watching.
Okay. Commissions, this is an issue that we hear about constantly. Sense we get from operators, all of the kind of the pressure, the movement seems to be upward, which is not something that operators are terribly thrilled about. My understanding, kind of broadly, like in the industry, it's kind of average is somewhere around kind of 20%. But a lot of operators say even in some markets it can go to 30. Varies a lot, of course, by market and relationships and so forth. But can you just, if I'm an operator and I'm making a decision, can you just kind of explain to me, like, why is it going up? How should I be thinking about this?
Absolutely. So from an operator perspective, I think the most important thing is to think about your profitability. Now, I think a very simple math would be if I pay more for an incremental customer in terms of commission, but that customer is very profitable to me, I should want that customer, right? Now, from a OTA perspective, first of all, the commission rates very much between different categories. So, for example, we're very cognizant that some operators have very high fixed costs. If you have a helicopter and have to buy fuel, we're not going to charge you 30%. Well, you won't give us 30%. But we also won't charge you 30% because, again, that additional customer probably won't be profitable to you anymore. The only way distribution works is if you have a reason to send us more customers, for us to send you more customers, and for you to receive those customers as well, right? And also, when you look at all the funding that companies like ours are raising, it's not like we're taking the commission and paying out handsome profits. All we do is invest into the consumer experience, invest in technology, and frankly, investing into reaching more customers. There are still so many customers today who are not aware of booking experiences, who are not aware that, okay, maybe I book one or two, but in fact, I can have a much better trip. So I think some of the slides you've shown around this is the best part of travel, one part of our mission is to make sure that everybody has access to these incredible experiences. I don't think everybody has. I think, including my friends and family, many haven't booked a tour before, many haven't booked an attraction ticket before, or not in the same way that you have shown to make it seamless, to make it, added value. And so I think we are still trying to enlarge the market, and that's definitely a huge investment we're taking, and the commission just goes straight into that investment.
So I want to talk about originals. So this is like a branded Get Your Guide product that you introduced last year. So are you guys becoming a supplier?
No, we're not becoming a supplier. So the product, so for those that don't know, Originals is a small part of our marketplace within a part of our inventory. So just within the walk-in tour segment, we're looking at partnering with local partners to create Get Your Guide branded tours. And at the forefront of that idea is, so we have all this data from customer reviews, from folks who call us in our customer service center and ask for things. And so we use that data and create branded tours that we think will really wow customers. And from what we've seen, people really love it. So the average review rating we get on some of these tours is around 4.7, 4.8, so really, really high. And when we give all this operational feedback back to our partners, because it helps them, it helps us.
But why, I guess, what's missing in the market? Like, why do you need to do that? Why can't you just say, oh, here is City Wonders tour, here is Eyes of Rome, why does it have to be a Get Your Guide branded tour?
Well, the genesis of this really was that customers were asking us for it already. So, we are pretty much a marketplace, and customers know who our operators are, right? And however, what we keep getting customer reviews or customer service complaints or customer requests saying, hey, I really like the Get Your Guide tour. I couldn't find my Get Your Guide tour guide. Where was the Get Your Guide meeting point? So I think customers don't sometimes understand that we don't actually run these tours. And we were, our goal is, again, to help improve the customer experience, and we wanted to take that confusion and increase the clarity on some of these things.
So
Douglas, we have a quick question from the audience here, right here, center.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Africa.
Hi.
Hi, Tao Tao. Hi, Douglas. Well, my company is Pancho Tours and Field the City Tours, and I'm the revenue manager. I have two questions. I hope that you have no problem to reply both of them, okay? The first one is regarding the commissions. It's true that, of course, you are an OTA, so you have to perceive the commission. But in our case, our guided tours are with tickets included. And about the tickets, we pay the tickets to, the tickets that the monument asks us to pay for them. But we have to pay the commission of this ticket. Did you consider to help the supplier to avoid the commission of these tickets?
So this is very specific, and I think I cannot generalize for all the different cities that we have and all the different points of interest. But what I will say is it's in our interest to always work with the suppliers to create a solution that keeps you motivated to get more customers from us. Because in the long term, if frankly, if we just rip you off and just take all the commission from all the incremental profits, then you won't be happy to work with us, and you probably won't be delivering a great service to a customer. So that's not in our interest. It is in our interest to create a long-term relationship that's great for both of us. I think that's the general answer. And specifically, this is one of the reasons we have, at this point, 16 local offices, because so we have local teams who come ideally visit you, or at least hopefully speak your language, and sit with you, work on the business plan, look at the customer demographics, look at, are we bringing you incremental customers that you haven't seen before? Are we bringing you customers that, hopefully probably not, that would have walked up to you before, maybe from different source markets? So, looking at this data and working with you and looking at case by case of whether it makes sense for you or not.
So I want to go back to the originals. Hey, Bax, can we put that slide up where we compare the two originals examples? So I want to look at those. So I pulled these two examples. So this is from Rome, obviously. So two very similar tours. So one is a Get Your Guide original. The other one is a Get Your Guide certified. And there's that yellow.
Certified, yes.
Certified. And so there's no tour operator brand there at all, but presumably those are two different tour operators that are providing those services. But you obviously would prefer that travelers book the Get Your Guide branded one. So you're competing, you're kind of stepping into the marketplace, and you're competing with some of the suppliers there. And so if I'm an operator, I'm thinking, boy, like I'm on this marketplace, I'm paying commission, and the folks who run the marketplace are also, they're going to tilt the scales in their balance. Like, what should I do?
Well, I think a few things, right? I think one thing we shouldn't forget is even we as a marketplace don't have the power just to tell consumers what to do just because we have a commercial benefit. Customers are pretty smart. They will book what the thing is right. And I think the broader point I want to make about branding, because you mentioned this, and I do think this is a very important consideration for operators to think about branding and your brand, is where on the brand should you invest and where on the brand should you not invest. Now, a big part when we think about brand is always brand awareness and the name, Get Your Guide or something else. And the question is, can you compete against the multi-million, multi-billion brand investments that some of these OTAs or we to a lesser extent do? Is that realistic? Or what I think would be my recommendation towards operators is to really invest into the differentiation of your experiences, because that at the core is the brand of your product.
Yeah, but if I'm listing my tour on Get Your Guide, I don't get my brand there. Does the customer even remember my brand? If I'm trying to build my brand, you don't even list my brand there. Some OTAs do. You guys have made a decision not to. Is that something you would consider changing?
So customers see the brand when they book, right? I think the question is, do you want more branding or do you want more bookings, right? If you want more bookings, then let us work with you to do what we think is best for customers for them to make a booking, right? And this, again, goes back to the differentiation of your service. If you have these two products and your product is much better than the originals one, then that's a differentiated product and customers will understand. So we are trying to help customers cure the chaos in this, what you call the fragmented marketplace of what makes sense or doesn't. And as an operator, I would absolutely invest. So, for example, it's unfortunately, I think, not shown here, but one of the experiences in slot 3 or 4 has a special access to the Vatican, in fact, before it opens. That's a truly differentiated product, and that is really a way to build your brand, because that gives OTAs, customers, publishers, everybody else a reason to write about it, to talk about it, and to send you more customers.
Okay, so I got one last quick question, then another little surprise. Airbnb experiences. So you guys started as a peer-to-peer, like experiences platform. It didn't work out. Is it going to work out for Airbnb?
you think Airbnb is peer-to-peer in experiences?
Well, that's a fair question. They certainly talk about it like it is. How many, just quickly, how many operators here list on Airbnb? We have any? Oh, there's a few. How many here list on GetYourGuide?
Yes.
Okay, a few more.
Thank you.
Okay. So really quick. So say on a scale of 1 to 10 for Airbnb, it's going to be a blowout success or a 0, an utter failure. How would you rate it?
Look, I don't know. I don't think it's fair to speculate on the fates of others, especially.
No, but it's fun. It may not be fair, but it's fun to speculate. So we just want a number. That's all. Come on, go for it. Nobody's watching. There's no cameras in the room or anything.
So, given that everybody else 10 years ago probably said 1 to us, maybe it's better if I give them a higher number because then it would go the other. No, I think they have a good shot. They have a great brand, so I give it a 4 or 5. Yeah.
Okay. Really quick. So I sometimes with interviews I like to wrap things up with a really quick game just for fun. Again, doesn't mean anything, any of your answers. It's just fun. So just enjoy and don't take anything from this whatsoever. So the game is called Either Or, right? So for example, I'd say vanilla or chocolate, and you would say?
Chocolate.
Okay, great, super, okay. Easy, right? Okay, wine or beer?
Beer.
Germany or China?
Germany.
Tour or activity?
Activity.
Food tour or walking tour?
Food tour.
Like a local or with a pro?
With a pro.
Apple or Google?
Google.
Facebook or Instagram?
Instagram.
Booking.com or Ctrip?
Ctrip.
TripAdvisor or Klook?
TripAdvisor.
Acquisition or IPO?
IPO.
100 million or 200 million?
Customers?
20% or 30%?
20%.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tao Tao, GetYourGuide.
Thanks, Douglas.